Cleveland is in trouble, and not just because this series is tied at 2 games apiece. They're in trouble because this is the exact kind of series that this Cavaliers team was built to control. After the first 2 games, it looked like they had done that. Cleveland had won 7 out of the 8 quarters over the first 2 games of this series. And the Toronto Raptors looked like they were about to be swept. The Cavaliers appeared deeper, cleaner, more talented, and just way more ready for the moment. But then the series moves to Toronto, and the whole thing flipped. And it's game 4 that really matters the most, because Toronto won it while shooting just 4 of 30 from 3. And just to give you some context on why that's so crazy, teams that had shots under 14% from 3 on more than 20 attempts in a playoff game were 0-15 before this win. Toronto just became the only team in playoff history to ever pick up a win under these circumstances. Making matters even worse for the Cavaliers, Toronto haven't had Emmanuel Quickley for the whole series. Brandon Ingram has been playing horribly in this one, and despite that, Cleveland still could not finish them off. That is why this all feels different. It's not about dropping 2 road games. It's how they just handed this Raptors team real belief. They let a team that appeared to be completely dead in the water suddenly feel like the upset is sitting right in front of them. Toronto just put the NBA on notice, and Cleveland might have put themselves in legitimate danger. The biggest thing Toronto did was make the game harder for Cleveland's stars. They stopped letting Donovan Mitchell and James Harden get comfortable. They started sending a lot more help Spider's way, forcing him to give up the ball before he could ever really get going. And when James Harden elected to drive, Toronto had plenty of bodies waiting. The idea was pretty simple. Take the ball out of Cleveland's best players' hands, make everybody else make quick choices, and see if the Cavs could stay organized. And that is the annoying part if you're Cleveland. Toronto did not reinvent basketball. They just made the obvious thing hard. In Game 1, Cleveland was getting to the rim with a frequency of 42%, but by Game 3, that was all the way down to 26%. That right there is a massive change. The Cavaliers went from getting downhill and basically living at the basket to hesitating, needlessly swinging the ball around, settling, and straight up turning it over. The pressure really shows up in the numbers. The Cavaliers had 20 turnovers in Game 3, then 18 more in Game 4. And the main culprit has been James Harden, who accumulated 15 turnovers across these 2 games. When your offense is built around 2 veteran guards controlling the game, you just cannot have this happen. The other big change was what Toronto did with Scottie Barnes. Toronto pretty much said, if Quickley is not here, we're not just going to pretend like we can replace him with a normal point guard. So let's put Scottie on the ball and make Cleveland deal with real size. That became the point Scottie adjustment. In Game 3, he had 33 points and 11 assists, both playoff career highs. But the number is not even the whole point. It's the way he played. He was attacking smaller guards, frequently getting into the paint, making the right reads, and forcing the Cavaliers to deal with strength instead of just speed. That really changed the whole feel of the game for the Raptors. Scottie became the force. RJ Barrett became the downhill pressure, and the Raptors began to play a bigger, meaner version of basketball where every single possession felt like a fight for the paint, the glass, and every loose ball. And this is where Collin Murray-Boyles really comes in. CMB has not just been a fun rookie story. He's fundamentally changed this matchup. With him at the 5 instead of Jakob Poeltl, Toronto are able to switch more, move faster, rebound far harder, and make the game flat out messy. In Game 3, he had 22 points and 8 rebounds on 11 of 15 shooting. Then in Game 4, he comes back with 15 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals in 27 minutes, becoming the first rookie in Raptors franchise history to post a 15-point, 10-rebound, 2-steal game in the playoffs. And that really matters, because on paper, Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen should have the physical edge in the series. But in Toronto, CMB started winning those effort plays. He was getting to the offensive glass, finishing decently well through contact, continuing to keep possessions alive, and making the Cavaliers deal with one more body around the rim over and over again. That is how Toronto wins Game 4, even while shooting horrendously from deep. They got 21 offensive rebounds. CMB continued to crash. Scottie Barnes backed up his Game 3 explosion with 23 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 blocks. And possession by possession, Toronto just wanted the ball more than Cleveland. To me, that is the series now. Toronto turned this series from a clean talent versus talent series, which was a situation they were never going to win, into an ugly, pressure, hard-fought battle. The kind of series they can absolutely win. And under these new circumstances, the Cavaliers have absolutely folded. Game 4 is the game that Cleveland will look back on if this series gets away from them, because they absolutely had it. The game was ugly right from the opening tip. Toronto could not buy a 3. Ingram was ice cold yet again. Both teams were wasting chances in the early going, and Cleveland had multiple chances to open this game up, and they just never did. But even after all of that, the Cavaliers were still in control late in this game. Midway through the final quarter, Donovan Mitchell really started to heat up. He hit a step-back 3 to tie the game. Then he drives the ball, finding James Harden wide open in the corner for 3, and he knocks it down. Then, even after a massive CMB putback dunk, Mitchell answers with a massive 3. Cleveland goes up 84-76 with under 5 minutes to go. I mean, that really could have been the game. You're up by 8. You already have a 2-1 series lead. You've got the veteran guards, and you're the team that made the all-in trade to win now. This is the moment where you're supposed to close the door and take a 3-1 lead in this series. But instead, Toronto just continued to come. CMB kept finding rebounds. Ingram finally stepped up and hit a massive 3 after fighting the game all night. Sam Merrill would then answer with a 3 of his own, putting the Cavaliers back up by 5. And even then, it felt like Cleveland should walk out with the win. But then, James Harden stupidly fouls Ingram on a 3. Ingram will then go to the line and only make 2. Then, the Cavaliers had multiple chances to create more separation and came up totally empty again. Mobley grabs 2 offensive rebounds on the same possession, and yet Cleveland goes 0 of 3. Then, RJ Barrett gets downhill and banks a shot home to cut the lead to just 1. Now Cleveland just needs to get the ball over the half-court line and get into your offense. But instead, Jamal Shead pressures Mitchell, cuts him off, and pokes the ball away. And the whole thing turns into an 8-second violation. That play might just become the moment people remember if the Cavaliers go on to lose this series. Because that wasn't just a mistake. It was Toronto being sharper. It was Cleveland not calling a timeout even though they had one. It was Donovan Mitchell not seeing the danger. And it was Toronto making the big time play and the Cavaliers freezing. After that massive play, Scottie Barnes gets downhill, forces the foul, and makes both free throws at the line. Cleveland gets another chance though, but Mitchell misses inside. Mobley can't finish on the putback. Then, after Toronto's free throws, Mitchell forces up a horrible 3, and they walk out the building with that final timeout still in pocket. I mean, that is brutal. Cleveland got outscored 12-2 in the final 2 minutes. They missed 8 free throws in a 4-point loss, and And across the final 2 minutes of the second, third, and fourth quarters combined, Toronto outscored them 29-2. That isn't just one bad bounce. That is a team failing to close the same way time and time again. And this is where the video stops being just about Toronto finding a way to get back in this series. Because Cleveland did not bring in James Harden just to look good in the regular season. They did not trade away Darius Garland for an older win-now guard at the same position just so this offense could fall apart the first time a playoff series got hard. They brought him in for moments just like these. And whether you thought that was a good decision or not, it was times like these where Cleveland really needed more from him. When the game slows down, Harden is supposed to settle them. When Toronto takes the ball away from Donovan, James Harden is supposed to be the guy to make the play. Cleveland doesn't need Houston Harden. They don't need 35 points a night. That was never going to be his role. This was supposed to be the situation where James Harden finally makes sense. Mitchell is the lead guard. Mitchell is the closer. Harden now has less responsibility, less scoring pressure, and a team around him that should not need him to carry everything. His job is way more simple. Just run the offense, keep the ball safe, get Mitchell easier looks, continue to make the right passes, and stop Cleveland from turning into one guy dribbling while everybody else watches. But in games 3 and 4, quite literally the opposite happened. Harden turns the ball over 8 times in game 3, and then 7 more in game 4. 15 turnovers over the course of 2 road playoff losses. And it's not just about the numbers, it's the kinds of turnovers. Soft passes, loose decisions, live ball errors, plays where Toronto didn't even need to build up a great possession because Harden just gave them the ball with space to run. And I know people get tired of the same James Harden conversation this time every year. But mate, what are we supposed to do when the same problems just continue to come back? I said before the playoffs that James Harden's legacy was absolutely on the line, and that's because he needs to finally step up. In 16 career Game 6s and 7s, Harden has averaged 20.6 points, 7.3 rebounds, and 3.8 turnovers a game on 53% true shooting. So his efficiency goes down and the turnovers go up. That is the big problem. But this Cavaliers team was meant to help him avoid this. He's no longer being asked to carry the whole offense. Donovan Mitchell's going to be the main guy. Cleveland also has Mobley and Allen to lean on, and the Cavaliers have plenty of shooting to go along with talent to win this series without Harden having to enter MVP form. That right here is what makes all of this so uncomfortable, because if Harden can't hold up in this role, then what are we even doing? If he's not able to just be a steady hand next to Donovan Mitchell, if he's totally unable to keep the ball safe, and he can't slow things down when Toronto sends pressure, then this conversation is getting really ugly really quickly. And to be fair, not all of this is on James Harden. Donovan Mitchell was also really rough in Game 4. He finished 6 of 24 from the field and shot just 2 of 12 from within the arc. Also, that 8-second violation, that was totally his fault as well. So it clearly isn't all on James. But the bit that makes it really hard to ignore when we're talking about James Harden is how his role was literally just supposed to be slow it down, set guys up, and don't sabotage the game. And yet, in games 3 and 4, he quite literally did the opposite. Coming into these playoffs, I believed that the Cavaliers had the most amount of pressure of any team in the NBA, paired with the least realistic chance to actually make a deep run. So I thought this was going to be a complete disaster. However, even I did not predict that they were going to be a potential first round exit. So if this team loses round 1 to Toronto, with Quickly not playing a second yet, with Ingram playing some of the worst basketball of his career, and dropping a Game 4 where Toronto shot 4 of 30 from 3. I mean, this wouldn't be just a bad loss. It would be a flat-out travesty. This is where the questions are going to get real. What did you actually just build? And what did you give away? Because if Darius Garland goes on to really make a career for himself out in LA with the Clippers, this is going to go down as one of the worst trades we've ever seen, especially if they lose round 1.